The champagne bottle slipped from Zuri's fingers and shattered across the marble floor. She didn't look down. She couldn't look away from what was in front of her. The penthouse was supposed to be empty. Min Seok was supposed to be in Seoul until Friday. Mina was at her grandmother's. Zuri had flown home from Geneva 48 hours early, champagne in hand, ridiculous grin on her face, because she had won. 6 months of litigation, 4 countries, 1 landmark human rights ruling, and she wanted to celebrate with her husband. She wanted to wake him up at midnight and dance badly in their kitchen, and remind herself why she had built this life. Instead, she was standing in the doorway of their bedroom, staring at a bracelet on the nightstand that did not belong to her. Rose gold, expensive, delicate in the way that things bought for someone you're trying to impress are delicate. She picked it up, turned it over, set it down. Then she walked, very calmly, to the bathroom, because her hands had started shaking, and she needed cold water on her face, and 30 seconds to think, before she became the kind of woman who destroyed her own kitchen. The bathroom mirror was open slightly. She didn't know why she looked behind it. She just did. The second phone was taped to the interior panel with electrical tape. Small, black, prepaid. When she powered it on with the hands that would not stop shaking, the screen showed one thing, a call log, the same unsaved number, every Thursday, 11 p.m., without a single exception going back 14 months. She stood there in her own bathroom holding her husband's secret phone and listening to the sound of her own breathing. Then she went to his study. She told herself she wasn't looking for anything specific. She told herself she was just checking. She told herself a great many things that she later recognized as the specific lies people tell themselves in the 60 seconds before their lives change permanently. The photographs were in a legal envelope beneath the desk blotter. There were 11 of them. Min Seok with a woman she had never seen, laughing in a way that Zuri recognized as real because she had spent 6 years learning the precise geography of her husband's expressions. Min Seok lifting a small boy onto his shoulders, maybe 4 years old, the boy shrieking with delight. Min Seok and the woman sitting across a restaurant table with the comfortable ease of people who have been sharing meals for years. Min Seok at a playground, watching the boy run, and on his face, the expression of someone watching something they love and are terrified of losing. Zuri sat on the floor of his study with her back against the desk and the photograph spread in a semicircle in front of her. She did not cry. She catalogued. Then she saw the papers beneath the photographs. Divorce documents, professionally drafted, dated 3 weeks ago. Her name at the top, Min Seok's signature at the bottom. He had already signed. The security system died at 11:47 p.m. Every camera, every sensor, every light, simultaneously, completely, silently. The penthouse went dark, except for the city bleeding through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and Zuri sat on the floor of her husband's study, surrounded by evidence of a life she had never been invited into, and thought, 6 years, 2 countries, 1 daughter, and apparently, 1 husband I invented entirely. The anonymous message arrived at midnight. Leave Korea with your daughter before it's too late. She stared at it for a long time. Then she noticed the timestamp. The message had been sent 4 hours ago. Someone knew what she would find before she found it. If this story already has you gripped, you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Subscribe to Afro-K Storyverse right now and hit the notification bell, because this is the kind of story we tell here, the kind that gets under your skin and stays there. Like this video, drop a comment telling us whether you think Zuri should stay or go, and let's get back into it. Tomi Balogun opened her door at 1 a.m. without asking any questions. That was the thing about 12 years of friendship. Tomi took one look at Zuri's face, at the careful blankness of it, the specific absence of expression that meant something catastrophic was being held at enormous internal pressure, and simply stepped aside. "Mina?" she said. "Her grandmother's. She's fine." "Okay." Tomi put the kettle on. "Sit down." Zuri sat. She placed the photographs on Tomi's kitchen table one at a time, like evidence being submitted to a court. Tomi stood across from her and looked at each one without speaking. When she had seen all 11, she sat down across from Zuri and folded her hands on the table. "Tell me everything," Tomi said, "from the beginning." So Zuri did. She told it precisely, and without embellishment, the way she had been trained to present facts in courtrooms, because if she stopped being precise, she would start being a woman whose husband had already signed divorce papers without telling her, and she could not afford to be that woman yet. She needed to be a lawyer first. She needed to understand the shape of what had happened before she could afford to feel it. When she finished, the kettle had long gone cold. Tomi said, "What do you need?" "Your guest room. Tonight. Tomorrow I'll figure out the rest. It's yours, for as long as you need it." Tomi paused. "Zuri, the anonymous message. I know. Someone is watching your house. I know. That's not a jealous wife situation. That's not even a divorce situation. I know," Zuri said quietly. "That's why I'm here, instead of a hotel." Tomi nodded slowly. "And Min-suk." Zuri looked at the photographs one more time, at the little boy on her husband's shoulders, laughing at nothing, at everything, at the pure, uncomplicated joy of being 4 years old and held by someone safe. "I don't know who Min-suk is," she said, and that was the most frightening sentence she had ever constructed. Min-suk arrived at Tomi's restaurant at 7 the next morning. He looked like a man who had driven around the city all night, rather than sit in the penthouse with whatever he knew he deserved. His shirt was from yesterday. His eyes were doing the thing they did when he was managing extreme emotion with intense concentration. Too still, too focused, like a building bracing against wind. Zuri met him on the pavement outside, where Mina, who Tomi had collected from her grandmother's at 6, could not hear through the glass. She did not raise her voice. That was how he knew she was truly finished with something. "The disappearances," she said, "the ones that last 3 or 4 days, and come with explanations that are technically sufficient and emotionally hollow. Explain them." "Zuri. The phones. I found 2. How many are there? Please let me. The surveillance on our building. The car that sits outside 3 nights a week. The man who stands at the corner of our street every time you travel for business. Who authorized it? If you'll just—" "The woman," Zuri said. "The child. Take your time." Min-suk opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. When he finally spoke, his voice was very quiet and very careful, the voice of a man choosing each word, like he was navigating a minefield that he himself had planted. "I have kept things from you," he said, "more things than you know, but Zuri, not the things you're imagining." "Then tell me the things I'm not imagining." He couldn't. She watched something close behind his eyes, some door she had never known existed, and understood with the particular clarity that comes from 6 years of reading a person, that whatever was behind that door was enormous, large enough to have swallowed their entire marriage while she was busy believing in it. "Come inside," he said. "Please, let me explain properly." "You had 6 years to explain properly," Zuri said. She walked back into the restaurant. She did not look back. That night, Tomi found Mina in the kitchen at 2 a.m. The 6-year-old was sitting at the table, with her tablet propped against the sugar bowl, 2 screens open simultaneously. On one, her father's face, red-eyed and exhausted. On the other, her mother's face, carefully composed in the way that adults compose their faces when they are trying not to frighten children, which is itself frightening. Mina had been switching between them, turning the tablet slightly each time, so neither parent could see the other screen, having 2 separate conversations, while quietly trying to engineer a third. 6 years old, and already running back-channel diplomacy. "Mina ya," Min-suk said softly through the screen. "Go to sleep. Are you and mommy getting a divorce?" Silence on both screens. Because Aisha at school said, when parents stop sleeping in the same house, it means divorce. Mina considered this seriously. But I told her my parents are smart. Smart people fix things. Silence. Right? Neither parent answered. Mina looked at the 2 screens, her father's face, her mother's face, and then she closed both tabs simultaneously, with the calm deliberateness of someone who has received the answer they were trying not to receive. Then she started to cry. Not loudly, quietly, in the specific way that children cry when they understand that being loud won't change anything. Tomi sat down beside her and put an arm around her shoulders and said nothing, because there was nothing to say. Across the apartment, Zuri had heard. She stood in the doorway of the guest room and listened to her daughter cry, and felt something break open in her chest that all of her legal training and courtroom composure and international crisis management experience had absolutely no framework for. She went to Mina. She sat on the other side. She held her daughter in Tomi's kitchen at 2 a.m., in the city that was supposed to be their home, and she thought, whoever is responsible for this, all of this, I am coming for them. I am going to find every piece of it, and then I am going to dismantle it with my bare hands if necessary. The immigration notification arrived the next morning by official courier. Residency status, suspended pending review. Basis, documentation irregularities requiring verification. Zuri had lived in Korea for 8 years. Her documentation had never once been irregular. She called her contact at the Justice Ministry, a man she had worked with on 3 international cases, someone she considered professionally reliable. His assistant answered, "I'm sorry, Ms. Adeyemi Choi. He's been advised not to speak with you." Advised by whom? A pause. I really cannot say. She hung up, sat very still for exactly 30 seconds. Then she opened her laptop, created a new encrypted file, and started building a case. Because if someone wanted her afraid, they had badly underestimated what she did for a living. While she was building the case file, her security software ran its standard sweep of her devices. It found something that was not standard. The tracking software on her laptop was not commercial grade. It was not the kind that jealous partners install or that appears in consumer surveillance packages. It was the kind used by government intelligence agencies or entities with the resources to acquire government-grade tools. It had been installed recently, within the last 72 hours, after she returned from Geneva, after she found the photographs. Someone was watching her investigation in real time. She called Min Suk. "Someone installed government-grade tracking software on my devices," she said. "Did you?" "No." His voice was immediate and absolute. "You understand. I have no reason to believe you. I know. I didn't install it. I wouldn't. Zuri, you have to believe me on this one thing." She thought about the divorce papers, about the second phone, about 14 months of Thursday calls to an unsaved number. Then she thought about the anonymous message and its 4-hour head start. "If you didn't install it," she said slowly, "then someone with serious resources is monitoring my devices. They installed it after I came home, after I found the photographs." "Yes, which means either you told them I was investigating. I didn't. Or your operation, whatever it is compromised. Someone on your side is watching me. And they're watching me because they're afraid of what I'll find." Min Sok was quiet for a moment. "Both," he said. "What?" "Both things are true. My operation is compromised, and I need you to stop investigating. Please. Not because I'm hiding things from you, though I am, and I know how that sounds, but because you are in genuine danger, and I cannot protect you if you're—" "Min Sok." "Yes. You don't get to tell me to stop," she said quietly. "Not anymore." She hung up, and she kept building. What she found in Daehan Global's public filings alone was enough to make her set her coffee down and stare at the ceiling for 3 full minutes. 17 shell companies registered across 4 jurisdictions that had no logical operational reason to be connected. Financial transfers routed through subsidiaries that existed on paper but had no verifiable physical presence. Government contracts awarded through procurement processes that moved at speeds inconsistent with standard regulatory review. A subsidiary incorporated in a jurisdiction known internationally for financial opacity, registered, and this was what made her set the coffee down, on the exact same week that Min Sok was appointed CEO 5 years ago. She spread the documents across Tomi's kitchen table. Tomi brought coffee, looked at the papers, looked at Zuri. "How deep does this go?" Tomi asked. "I don't know yet. Are you scared?" Zuri considered the question with genuine honesty, which was something she rarely allowed herself during an active investigation. "I'm scared of what happens to Mina if I stop," she said. Tomi nodded. That was enough. Mina found Zuri at the kitchen table surrounded by documents at midnight. She climbed into Zuri's lap without asking, the absolute sovereign right of 6-year-olds, and sat there, watching the papers with an expression of focused seriousness that was so precisely Min Seok's expression that Zuri had to look away for a second. After a long silence, Mina said, "Mommy, did Daddy lie because he doesn't love us anymore?" "No, baby." "Then why?" Zuri held her tighter. "Sometimes people lie because they love someone so much they're scared of losing them. They think the secret protects the person. They think the truth would hurt more than the hiding." She paused. "They're wrong. But the lying comes from something real. That doesn't make sense." "No," Zuri said. "It really doesn't." Mina was quiet for a moment. "Are you going to fix it?" "I'm going to find out the truth first. Then I'll know what there is to fix." Mina nodded, satisfied by the precision of this answer, in a way she would not have been satisfied by reassurance. She was, at 6, already her mother's daughter. "Okay," she said, "but fix it fast. I don't like sleeping in Auntie Tomi's apartment. Her pillow smells like her restaurant. Her restaurant smells like jollof rice and galbi. I know. I'm going to smell like food at school." Zuri laughed, genuine, sudden, helpless, and buried her face in her daughter's hair. It was the first time she had laughed in 4 days. Han Yun-soo contacted Zuri through a mutual legal colleague 3 days later. The message was careful and specific. A time, a location, instructions to come alone, and leave her phone at home. The precision of the approach was itself a kind of credential. They met at Tomi's restaurant after closing. The chairs were up on the tables. The kitchen was dark. Tomi sat at the bar and made it clear, without being asked, that she was not leaving. Yun-soo looked at Tomi. Tomi looked back. "She stays," Zuri said. Yun-soo sat down. She placed an encrypted drive on the table between them. Small. Silver. She kept her fingers on it for a moment before sliding it across. "Everything on this drive is documented," she said. "Verified. Time-stamped. Chain of custody is clean. What am I looking at?" "Evidence that your husband has operated under at least one alternative identity for the past 11 years. Financial accounts, address records, a professional history that runs parallel to the one you know." She paused. "The identity is clean, professionally constructed. The kind of construction that requires either government resources or someone with access to people who have government resources." Zuri did not react visibly. She had learned, in courtrooms across 4 continents, to receive devastating information with complete stillness. Stillness was control. Control was the only thing she had left. "Why are you showing me this?" she said. "Because I've worked beside Min Seok for 7 years. I know exactly who he is. What's on that drive is going to make you doubt that. I need you to hold both things simultaneously, what the files show and what I'm telling you, which is that he built that identity to protect people, including you, especially you." Zuri looked at the drive. "Everyone who has ever lied to me has had a reason," she said. She stood. "Ms. Adiemi Choi." She turned. "The divorce papers you found," Yun-soo said. "He didn't draft them. He received them. Someone sent them to his study. Placed them there for you to find. Who? That's what I'm still working out. But I wanted you to know. Those papers did not come from Min Seok." Zuri left with the drive. She didn't sleep that night. She went through everything on the drive, with the systematic thoroughness of someone trained to build legal arguments from raw evidence, and what she found confirmed Yun-soo's summary and expanded it considerably. 11 years of a parallel life, carefully maintained, never overlapping with the life she knew. She was still working at 3 a.m. when she reached for the drive. It was gone. Not missing. Not misplaced. Gone from the slot she had left it in. The laptop closed. The document she had been building from it. Blank. Completely blank. Not deleted. Overwritten. On the screen. One line of text in the document application. "You're asking the right questions. Stop before you find the right answers. She screenshotted it. Then she called Min-suk. He answered on the first ring, which meant he had not slept either. Someone was in Tomi's apartment, she said. Someone came in here while my daughter was sleeping and took evidence from my laptop and left a message on my screen. She heard him exhale. Sharp, controlled. The specific sound of someone managing terror under compression. I'm coming. No, tell me the truth first. All of it. Because whoever is doing this knows I'm investigating. Which means either you told them, or your operation is completely blown. Either way, I need to know what I'm standing in the middle of. His voice, when it came, was very quiet. Both, he said again. You keep saying both, because it keeps being both. Then come here, she said, and start talking. He came at 4 a.m. He sat across from her at Tomi's kitchen table, with the city still dark outside, and their daughter, breathing softly in the next room, and he told her. 11 years ago, government investigators had approached him with evidence that Daehan Global was being used as a vehicle for systematic corporate corruption. The scale was significant. The people implicated were powerful in ways that made standard prosecution extremely complicated. The investigators needed someone on the inside, someone with access and credibility, and a personal stake in the outcome. Min-suk had two choices: walk away and say nothing, or cooperate. He cooperated. To do it safely, to protect the investigation, to protect his position as cover, to protect the people around him. He built a parallel identity, bank accounts, addresses, a professional history that could withstand scrutiny from anyone checking his movements. He was already maintaining it when he met Zuri. He was maintaining it when they married. He was maintaining it the day Mina was born. Every year, he said, I told myself, next year it will be finished. Next year I'll tell her everything. Next year, there will be nothing left to hide. He looked at his hands on the table. And every year, the investigation expanded. Every year, there was one more thing, one more reason to wait. And one more year, I spent married to a performance, Zuri said. Not a performance, and never that. Min-suk, I was playing a wife. You were playing a husband. Our daughter was playing a child, in a family that was built on a foundation I was never allowed to see. Mina is real. What I feel for you is real. That was never the performance. How would I know the difference, she said. That's the problem. How would I know which parts were real? You took my ability to trust my own perception of our marriage. That's what the secret did. It didn't just hide information from me. It made me doubt everything I thought I knew. He had no answer for that. For the first time in 11 years, he had no prepared answer. The silence stretched between them. Then Min-suk said, There's one more thing. Tell me. The woman in the photographs. Yes. Her name is Ji-young. Zuri waited. She's my sister. The room went completely still. You don't have a sister, Zuri said. You told me you were an only child. Your parents are both deceased. You have no siblings. I've met your family. I've been to their graves. I told you what I was told to tell everyone. His voice broke slightly. The first fracture in the entire conversation. The first place where the control cracked and something real and raw bled through. Ji-young was supposed to have died in an accident when she was 9. The family announced it. There was a funeral. I was 12 years old, and I stood at her grave and I cried, and I believed every word of it. He stopped. Until 4 years ago, when she walked into my office. She's alive. She's been alive the entire time. Hidden, relocated, given a new name, a new history. When she knocked on my office door 4 years ago, I thought I was seeing a ghost. He paused. I thought I was losing my mind. Zuri looked at the photographs again. The woman's face, the way she tilted her head when she laughed, the bone structure that she had not recognized before, because she had never had any reason to look for it. Now she saw it immediately. The little boy, she said. Her son, my nephew, he's 5. You have a nephew. I have a family I'm only beginning to understand. Zuri set the photographs down. Were you afraid I would leave? She said. If you told me. He answered immediately. without looking away. I was terrified. Every single day. I watched you. How precise you are. How clearly you see through dishonesty in your work. How little patience you have for people who equivocate. And I thought, the moment she looks at me the way she looks at a corrupt witness, it's finished. Everything is finished. So you kept the secret to keep me. Yes. And in doing that, you lost me anyway. He nodded. I know, he said. I know that. Outside, the first gray light of morning had appeared over Busan Harbor. Zuri looked at it for a long moment. I'm not leaving Korea, she said. I'm not running from an anonymous threat, and I'm not signing divorce papers that someone planted for me to find. She met his eyes. But I need everything. Every piece. Every name. Every secret. Starting from the beginning. Starting now. Okay, he said. And Min Sok. Yes. If I find out there's something you've still held back, anything, no matter how small, we're done. Not the separation we're currently in. Done. Understood. Good. She picked up her pen. Start talking. They had been talking for 2 hours when Min Sok's emergency phone rang. Yoon Soo's voice, flat and controlled, in the way of someone managing something very bad. Ji Young is gone. She had agreed to meet with us this morning. I went to her apartment. It's empty. Her phone is disconnected. The boy, with a neighbor, Ji Young, left him with a note. What does it say? Yoon Soo read it. Tell my brother I'm sorry. I found something he needs to know, and I got too close to it. Keep my son safe. Don't look for me. Min Seok's face went completely still. He had lost his sister when he was 12 years old. He had mourned her. He had buried her. In the way that you bury the dead when you are 12 and someone tells you to. He had carried that loss for 23 years. She had come back to him. He was not losing her again. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. If you haven't subscribed to Afro-K Storyverse yet, do it right now, because we are about to go somewhere this story has been building toward from the very first scene, and you do not want to miss a single word. Subscribe, like, drop a comment. We'll be right back. Working beside her husband felt like muscle memory from a life she thought she'd lost. Zuri hated how natural it felt. She hated, slightly less, that it still felt natural at all. She hated, the most, that hating it didn't seem to be doing anything useful. Together, they were formidable, in complementary ways, that she had forgotten they were. Zuri brought legal architecture, the ability to trace document trails across jurisdictions, identify structural anomalies, build coherent evidentiary narratives from fragments. Min Seok brought operational knowledge, 11 years of understanding exactly how Daehan Global moved money, made decisions, and buried things it needed buried. Within 48 hours, they had established the following about Chairman Choi Hyun-jae. He had arranged for the photographs to be taken and placed in Min Sok's study, specifically timed to coincide with Zuri's return from Geneva, which meant he had access to her travel schedule. He had made 3 direct calls to the Immigration Ministry in the week before Zuri's residency was suspended, and he had been actively concealing Ji Young's existence and her movements for over 2 decades. What they still could not determine was why. What was so important that a man would erase his own niece from existence and maintain that erasure for 26 years? The safe house lost power at 9 p.m. on the second night. They sat in the dark with the candles Tommy had packed. Because I grew up in Lagos, and I know better than to depend on electricity, she had said, without irony, and the investigation files spread across the floor. Mina was asleep in the back room. The candlelight did something to the atmosphere that electricity didn't. It made the room smaller. It made the distance between 2 people feel like a choice, rather than a circumstance. Min Sok talked about architecture school, how at 20, he had wanted to design spaces where people felt genuinely safe, not structurally sound, not aesthetically impressive, but emotionally safe, spaces that held people. How his uncle had redirected him toward the company at 22, and he had told himself it was temporary, a detour. He would go back. You never went back, Zuri said. No. Do you regret it? He thought about it honestly. I regret the reason I didn't go back. The choice itself, being in the company, being positioned to cooperate with investigators, that produced something. My father would have... He stopped. Your father would have what? He looked at the candle. My father tried to do the right thing, he said. I thought I was finishing it. Zuri told him about her first human rights case. A woman in a detention facility who had no legal recourse in any language she spoke, in any jurisdiction that would listen. Zuri had sat with her for 3 hours and done nothing legally useful, just listened, just witnessed. And that was the moment she understood what the work was actually for. I forgot you told me that story, Min-sok said. You remembered it. You told me on our third date. I remember everything about our third date. Do you? You ordered 3 things from the menu and ate all of them without apology. I found that extraordinary. She almost smiled. Almost. I'm still angry, she said. I know. I need you to understand that sitting here working with you is not the same as forgiveness. I'm here because our daughter needs both her parents functional, and because whatever is happening is bigger than our marriage. I understand. Good. Another silence. The candle guttered slightly in a draft. Min-sok. Yes. What did we look like before, when things were good? He was quiet for a moment. Like people who had found something they didn't expect, he said, and were slightly terrified of losing it. She looked at the candle. That's accurate, she said. Yoon-soo arrived at midnight with a file. She sat across from both of them and offered no preamble because she had been working with Min-sok for 7 years and had learned that preamble was a way of managing other people's reactions at the cost of time, and they did not have time. Min-sok's father didn't die in an accident, she said. The room went silent in a specific way. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of something very large and very terrible settling into place. There is documented evidence, distributed across 3 separate company archives, so that no single file tells the complete story, that your father discovered the original fraud inside Daehan Global, not the current operation, the founding-era corruption, a scheme going back 30 years. She opened the file. He was preparing to take it to prosecutors. He had scheduled a meeting with the investigative division. The accident happened 4 days before that meeting. And Hyun-jae, Min-sek said. The evidence points consistently in his direction. It doesn't establish direct causation, but the documentary trail is significant. The room was silent for a long time. He came to the funeral, Min-sok said finally. His voice was very even, too even. He held me while I cried. I was 14 years old, and my uncle held me at my father's funeral. He stopped. He put flowers on the grave. No one spoke. And Ji-young? Zuri said. Your father's evidence was what Ji-young overheard, Yoon-soo said. She was 9. She didn't understand all of it, but she understood enough that Hyun-jae couldn't risk her talking. Relocating her was, in his framework, the humane option. The humane option, Min-sok repeated. I'm telling you what he would have told himself. Min-sok stood. He walked to the window and stood there looking at the harbor, and Zuri watched his back and thought about the boy he had been at 14, standing at his father's funeral with his uncle's arm around him, crying, not knowing that the arm comforting him belonged to the reason the grave existed. She thought about what that kind of betrayal did to a person, not the sudden shock of it, the slow-motion horror of understanding it years later, reconstructing every memory with the new information, watching every moment of apparent comfort recontextualize itself into something else entirely. Min-sok, she said quietly. He turned. I know this is. It's fine, he said, which they both knew was not true, and both knew was the only possible answer right now. Then Zuri looked back at her laptop. She had been cross-referencing dates in Yoon-soo's file against her own case history as a standard practice, building the timeline, looking for overlaps, constructing the complete sequence. She stopped. Read the same entry 4 times. Min-sok, she said. He crossed to her. She pointed at the screen. 5 years before she met Min-sok, while she was clerking for an international trade tribunal in Brussels, she had filed a procedural brief flagging suspicious financial flows through a holding company with unusual structural characteristics. It was a routine flag, standard practice. She had filed dozens like it over the years. The holding company was a Daehan Global subsidiary. Her brief had triggered an internal review. The review had escalated to an external investigation. The investigation had exposed one of Chairman Hyun-jae's key financial associates. The associate had been prosecuted and convicted. "He didn't start targeting me when I married you," Zuri said. She looked up at Min-sok. "He's had my name for 5 years. I was a threat to him before I ever knew he existed. And then I married into his family." Zuri. The residency suspension, the tracking software, the anonymous message, the planted divorce papers. She laid it out with the calm precision of someone who has just completed a proof. "He didn't do any of that because I found your secrets. He was already looking for a way to remove me. Our marriage gave him the mechanism." Min-sok stared at her. "He's been waiting 5 years, he said, and we walked right into it." She closed the laptop. "We need to move faster. We need to be significantly further ahead of him than we currently are, before he realizes we've connected all of this. What do you need?" "Everything Yoon-soo has. Everything you have. And I need to find Ji-young." As if in response, because sometimes the universe has a sense of narrative timing that feels almost cruel, Min-sok's phone lit up. "Unknown number," he answered. Ji-young's voice, low and very fast. "Don't say my name. Don't say where you are. Listen, I found the original file. Papa's file. The one that was supposed to have been destroyed 30 years ago. A breath. I kept it. I took it when they relocated me. I was 9 years old, and I understood that the paper was important, because of how frightened Papa's voice sounded when he talked about it. I hid it in the lining of my stuffed rabbit, and I carried it with me, and I have had it for 26 years. Min-sok looked at Zuri. "Where are you?" he said. "Close, but I need to know something first. Is your wife with you?" "Yes." "Good. She's the reason I'm calling. She's the one who can actually use this. She knows how. Ji-young. I've been watching her for 4 years, since I found you. She's the best person for this. If you trust her, and you should, Min-sok, you should have trusted her years ago. Let her lead this." A pause. "Can you be somewhere safe in 30 minutes? They were. The call came from the hospital at 6 the next morning. Tomi. Coastal Road. Traffic accident. Serious but not critical. Zuri was at the bedside within the hour. Mina left with Yoon-soo. Tomi was bruised and fractured and furious in the specific way of someone who has narrowly missed dying and is expressing this through anger because the alternative expression is not something they are willing to do in public. "A car ran me off the road," Tomi said, deliberately, on purpose. "A person made that choice. Don't let anyone tell you it was an accident. I believe you, because it wasn't." He shifted, winced, regrouped. "Zuri, before they take me to surgery, I need to tell you something. I'm listening. I've been making inquiries. On my own. I know you didn't ask me to. I know you would have told me not to. But I've been in this city for 11 years, and I know people, and I use those people to ask questions about Daehan Global." He met her eyes. "There is someone inside Min-seok's inner circle who has been reporting directly to Hyun-jae. Someone with deep access. Someone who has been there long enough to know everything. Do you know who?" He hesitated. Tomi, who had never hesitated about anything in his life, hesitated. "I have a name, but if I'm wrong about it, saying it out loud destroys an innocent person. Let me be sure." He gripped her hand. "But Zuri, be careful. Be careful about everyone." They took him to surgery. Zuri stood in the hospital corridor and thought about everyone who had been close enough to know her movements. Close enough to know about Geneva. Close enough to know she would be at Tomi's apartment with an encrypted drive at 3 a.m. She thought about who had the most access. She thought about Han Eun-soo. Min-sok pulled back from Eun-soo that afternoon. Professionally. Carefully. Without accusation. But Eun-soo had spent 7 years working directly beside him, and she noticed the shift within approximately 4 hours of it beginning. She said nothing. She continued working. She did her job with the same precision and the same competence as every other day. Which was, Zuri thought, watching. Either the behavior of someone with absolutely nothing to hide, or someone extraordinarily skilled at hiding things. She had met both kinds in courtrooms. The challenge was that from the outside, in the short term, they looked identical. Yoon-soo requested 5 minutes alone with Zuri that evening. Min-suk objected. "No," Zuri said. He looked at her. 5 minutes, she said to Yoon-soo. Corridor. They stood in the corridor of the safe house. Yoon-soo's voice was quiet and level, and utterly without defensiveness, which was itself interesting. "I know what Min-seok thinks," she said. "I know what your friend's accident implies. I'm not going to defend myself with words, because words are easy, and I have no evidence to offer you, except one thing." She reached into her jacket pocket. She placed a photograph on the narrow table in the corridor between them. Zuri looked at it. It was Mina, taken through a long focus lens, outside her school. Mina, in her navy coat with the yellow buttons, her school bag half off one shoulder the way it always was, squinting against the sun. The date stamp was 3 years ago. "I found this in Hyun-jae's office files, 18 months ago," Yoon-soo said. "He has had photographs of your daughter taken regularly for at least 3 years, possibly longer." She paused. "I've been watching her ever since. Every school run, every after-school activity, every occasion that Min-suk couldn't be there. I've had eyes on your daughter for 18 months. Zuri looked at the photograph. "Why didn't you tell us?" she said. "Because someone in your circle was already reporting to Hyun-jae. I didn't know who. If I told Min-suk, the information would reach Hyun-jae within 24 hours, and if it reached him that I'd found the photographs." She looked at the image. "I made a choice about what mattered most." "You've been protecting my daughter for 18 months, Zuri said. "Someone had to." Zuri picked up the photograph, looked at her daughter's face, the navy coat, the yellow buttons, the unsuspecting, ordinary, irreplaceable smallness of her. "Who took these?" she said. "Someone inside the school's administrative contractor. We've since confirmed 2 others in positions near Mina's routine. And you handled it." Quietly. "Yes." Zuri placed the photograph in her file. "Are you reporting to Hyun-jae?" she said. "No." "Are you certain there's no way your communications have been compromised in a way that effectively—" "I'm certain." "How?" "No." "Because I haven't had any communications about this investigation that didn't go directly through encrypted channels that I set up myself, and that no one else has access to. Not Min-suk. Not anyone." A pause. "The person reporting to Hyun-jae is not me, but I know who it is. Tell me." Yoon-soo told her. The name was not a surprise. It was the kind of name that, once you heard it, made every other piece suddenly slot into position. The specific retrospective clarity of realizing that the shape you couldn't quite see had been visible all along from the right angle. Zuri went back inside. She sat across from Min-suk. She said the name. She watched his face. And she watched something in him, some last remaining protected place, where a certain kind of loyalty had lived, go completely still, and then, quietly, break. His closest business partner, the man who had advocated for him at every board meeting, who had championed his appointment as CEO, who had attended Mina's birthday parties and held her when she was 3, and laughed and said she had her father's eyes, who had been inside Hyun-jae's operation from the very beginning, who had been feeding information for 3 weeks, whose access to Min-suk's professional life was comprehensive enough to have facilitated nearly everything that had happened. Tomi's instinct was right, Zuri said. Min-seok said nothing for a long time. Then, how long? Yoon-soo believes he's been connected to Hyun-jae for at least 7 years, since before your father's case was reopened internally. He came to the reinvestigation meetings. He sat in the same room. Min-suk stopped. He knew. He knew everything I shared in those rooms. Every name I gave them. Every lead. All of it went directly to Hyun-jae. Yes. My cooperation, my entire 11 years of cooperation, was undermined by someone sitting across from me in the conference room. Yes, I protected nothing. I achieved nothing. My father's He stopped. Min Sok, I need a minute. You can have a minute, she said, but then we need to move, because Hyun-jae knows we're close to something, and he is not going to wait for us to finish. He took exactly 1 minute. Then he looked up. Ji-young is outside, he said. She's been waiting since last night. She has the original file. He straightened. Let's end this. Ji-young brought the file to the kitchen table and opened it with the careful reverence of someone who has carried something for a very long time and understands precisely what it cost to carry it. It was a 30-year-old document, handwritten sections, typed sections, photographs, ledger copies, bank records that had been obtained through methods that a 9-year-old girl could not have understood but had recognized as important from the way her father's hands shook when he held them. At 9 years old, Ji-young Choi had understood exactly 2 things: that her father was frightened and that the papers were the reason. She had taken 1 complete copy, her father had made 2, and she had taken 1 from the study while her mother was distracted and hidden it in the lining of the stuffed rabbit she slept with every night. When they relocated her 3 weeks after her father's death, she had carried the rabbit. She had carried it for 26 years. He knew, she said, looking at Min Sok. Papa knew everything. He had everything documented. He was going to walk into the prosecutor's office with this file, and he was going to end it. Min Sok looked at his father's handwriting on the pages. He had not seen his father's handwriting in 25 years. I look like him, Ji-young said quietly. Don't I? You keep looking at me like... Yes, Min Sok said. You look exactly like him. She nodded. They sat with that for a moment. Min Sok, Zuri said. She had been reading the file while they spoke. She had been cross-referencing it against her own compiled evidence, with the focused speed of someone who had been building to this moment for 2 weeks. It's all here, she said. The founding fraud, the suppression of your father's investigation, the structural mechanism Hyun-jae used to maintain control of the company after your father's death, the shell company architecture, the political connections. She looked up. It's everything. This file alone would open a formal prosecution, combined with what we've built. She looked at Yoon-soo. Combined with the 7 years of documentation Yoon-soo has maintained. It's unassailable, Yoon-soo said. It's unassailable, Zuri confirmed. The room was quiet. Min Seok looked at the file, at his father's handwriting, at his sister's face across the table, at his wife, who was still, technically, his wife, with the full weight of everything she had been through in the past 3 weeks, visible in the set of her shoulders, and the particular quality of her stillness. He thought about what it had cost. Every year of the secret, every year of the performance, every year he had told himself, next year, next year. He thought about 14-year-old Min Sok at his father's funeral, crying, held by the man who was responsible. He thought about 9-year-old Ji-young carrying a stuffed rabbit across whatever city they had sent her to, understanding that the papers inside it were the last important thing their father had left. He thought about Mina's drawing on the wall of the safe house, 4 figures holding hands, labeled carefully, with the dog they were getting soon. He thought about what it meant to protect something. He thought about what it meant to finish something. I want to call a press conference, he said. Min Sok, Yoon-soo began. I want to put this in front of the country, all of it, my father's file, our documentation, everything. I want to step down and support a full independent investigation. And I want Hyun-jae to not have a single hour of warning that it's coming. If you do that, Zuri said carefully, the company will be in crisis. Your personal finances will be under scrutiny for years. You'll lose. I know what I'll lose. Min Sok, I need you to say it out loud. I need to know you understand it. He met her eyes. I'll lose the company, the board position, the professional relationships I've spent 11 years building, the financial security, the social standing. He paused. I'll lose the ability to tell Mina that her father protected the family empire. And I'll tell her instead that her grandfather tried to do the right thing, and that it took 25 years, but it got finished. Zuri looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at Ji-young, who was watching her brother with an expression of very old, very patient love. The love of someone who lost a person and got them back, and is trying not to hold on too tightly. Then she opened her laptop. "Then we have 12 hours to prepare," she said. "Let's not waste them." The response to the press conference announcement hit Daehan Global's corporate ecosystem like a controlled detonation. Within 3 hours of the announcement, Hyun Jae's office released a preemptive statement questioning Min Seok's stability and leadership judgment. 2 law firms serving the company sent cease and desist notices. 3 separate media outlets published stories, citing anonymous sources claiming Min Seok was under criminal investigation. Stories with no factual basis, constructed entirely to discredit him before he could speak. Min Seok read each development as it arrived. His expression did not change. "They're scared," he said. "Good," Zuri said. "Scared people make mistakes." She was already on the phone with 3 different legal colleagues across 2 time zones, ensuring that the evidence package was distributed to independent legal repositories before the press conference began. If Hyun Jae attempted to suppress the event itself, the documents would already exist, in places he could not reach. Yun Soo coordinated media logistics with the precision of someone who had spent 7 years managing complicated communications situations, and was applying every skill she had to this one. Ji-young sat with Mina in the back room. They had not been introduced as aunt and niece yet. That conversation was for after, for when the storm had passed, and there was space for something good. For now, Ji-young simply sat with Mina, and they played cards, and Ji-young let Mina win, in the specific transparent way that Mina saw through immediately. "You're letting me win," Mina said. "I'm not. You are. You had the 7 of clubs, and you didn't play it." Ji-young looked at her for a moment. "You're very observant," she said. "My mom says that. She says it like it's a compliment, but also like it's slightly inconvenient." Ji-young laughed, genuine, sudden, the laugh that Zuri had seen in the photographs, and that now, hearing it for the first time, she recognized with the same bone-deep recognition she had felt seeing the photographs. It was Min Seok's laugh. The real one. The one she had fallen in love with at a dinner party in Seoul 8 years ago. The family resemblance, once you were looking for it, was everywhere. At 9 a.m., the next morning, Min Seok Choi walked to the podium in a room full of cameras and silence. He wore a dark suit, no corporate communications director beside him, no lawyer whispering last-minute adjustments, no prepared spin doctor with a crisis management framework and strategic messaging guidance. Just Min Seok, and his father's file, and the truth. He spoke for 22 minutes. He laid out the founding-era corruption at Daehan Global with documentary precision, citing specific dates, specific accounts, specific transfers. He named Chairman Choi Hyun Jae directly. He presented the evidence of his father's investigation and his father's death. He named his business partner and detailed the mechanism of the information leak. He acknowledged his own role, not in the original fraud, but in the years of protected silence, the parallel identity, the choices he had made in the name of protection that had produced, in the end, a marriage that operated on secrets, and a family that had never fully been able to be itself. He announced his immediate resignation. He announced his full support for an independent investigation with prosecutorial authority. And then, departing from the prepared remarks entirely, because he had never really intended to follow them, he looked directly into the camera and said, "To my wife, to my daughter, I spent 11 years believing that protecting you from the truth was the same as protecting you. It isn't. The truth protects. The hiding only delays the damage and adds to it. I should have understood that from the beginning. I should have told my wife everything on the day I met her, or the day I married her, or any one of the 2,190 days between our wedding and this morning. I chose the secret every single time. I will spend the rest of my life earning the right to make a different choice." In the back of the press room, Zuri stood with Mina pressed against her side. Mina had absolutely refused to be left at the safe house. She had used the specific argument that 6-year-olds deploy when they have correctly identified that adults are not going to win. "You can carry me in if you have to, but I'm going." Zuri had chosen not to make it a fight worth having. Now Mina stood beside her mother and watched her father speak, with the expression of focused, serious evaluation that she got when she was deciding something important. It was the expression she had worn when she decided she trusted the new teacher at school, when she decided Tomi's jollof rice was better than her grandmother's, a diplomatic crisis in its own right, when she decided, at 4, that she was old enough to dress herself, and implemented this decision unilaterally and without appeal. When Min Sok finished speaking, Mina was quiet for a moment. Then she slid her hand into Zuri's. "He meant that," she said. "Yes," Zuri said. "The whole thing. Not just the last part. The whole 20 minutes. Yes." "Okay then," Mina said. "Can we get food after?" "Auntie Tomi's restaurant. Except Auntie Tomi is still in hospital. But they know us there." Zuri looked at her daughter. "Yes," she said. "We can get food after." Chairman Choi Hyun-jae was formally referred to prosecutors within 3 weeks of the press conference. His influence, built over 3 decades, began to disassemble with the methodical inevitability of a structure whose load-bearing elements have been quietly removed. His statements to media became less frequent, then rare, then stopped entirely, as his legal representation advised silence. Min Sok's business partner was prosecuted. He cooperated with investigators. His testimony, combined with the documentary evidence and Ji Young's original file, produced a case that legal analysts described as comprehensive to an unusual degree. The prosecution took 18 months. The verdict was not in doubt. The immigration hold on Zuri's residency was lifted within 2 days of the press conference, as the specific officials who had facilitated it became suddenly and urgently concerned with demonstrating that they had been acting under improper pressure rather than their own judgment. Yoon-soo was offered positions at 4 competing firms within 6 weeks. She chose the one with the best parental leave policy, a decision she announced with the same composure she brought to everything, and sent Mina an extremely serious congratulations card with a small stuffed animal attached. Mina named the stuffed animal Yoon-soo Jr., which Yoon-soo received as the profound honor it was intended to be. Tomi recovered. He opened a second restaurant. The menu featured a section of dishes that changed without notice or announcement. He called the section the Cliffhanger. Regulars loved it. They came back every week to see what had changed. "Some things," Tomi said, when people asked him about the name, "are better when you don't know what's coming." Ji Young moved to Busan. She and Min Sok had lunch every Sunday. They were learning each other, carefully, with the particular tenderness of people who have been separated for a long time, and are aware that the separation changed them both, and that the people sitting across the table are not entirely the people they lost, and that this is all right, and that what they can build now might be different from what they had before, but is not less than it. Her son and Mina became inseparable in the swift and total way that children become inseparable when they are near the same age, and have been given access to the same household with the same standards of acceptable chaos. Mina told him on their second meeting that he was her cousin. He said, "What's a cousin?" She said, "It's like a friend, except you're also family, so they can't leave." He said, satisfied with this. Zuri established her own immigration and human rights law firm in Busan. She kept 3 associates, a paralegal, and a clear sign on the door that said what the firm did and who it was for. Within 8 months, she had more cases than she had capacity for. She hired 2 more attorneys and remained constantly, productively, overwhelmed in the way that people are overwhelmed when they are doing exactly the right work. Min Seok went back to school. Architecture. He sat in studio classes with students 15 years younger than him and did not find this as uncomfortable as he had expected. He found that the things he had learned running a corporation, systems thinking, structural planning, the management of complex interdependencies, translated to the design studio in ways that surprised his professors and did not surprise Zuri, who had always known that the way he thought was spatial and structural, and that the company had never been quite the right container for it. They began marriage counseling in the 2nd month. Their counselor was a woman in her 50s, with the specific quality of presence that good therapists develop. The ability to hold space without filling it, to reflect without distorting, to ask the precise question at the precise moment when it can be received. The sessions were difficult. Some of them were very difficult. There were sessions where Zuri said things she had held for years, not just months, and the weight of the saying was significant. There were sessions where Min-seok understood, for the first time, the full dimension of what the secret had cost. Not in dramatic terms, not the obviously terrible things, but in the small accumulated daily costs that are harder to name and harder to repair. They were not healed. They were healing. The difference mattered. They moved into a new apartment, not the penthouse, which neither of them wanted, which carried too much of the old architecture in its walls. Something smaller, with a view of the harbor that Min-seok had loved as a design student, and Zuri had come to love through living here. With a room for Mina that Mina decorated herself over 3 weekends, with a level of aesthetic confidence that suggested a future in some kind of design field, which Min-seok found quietly, privately, immensely gratifying. They were still learning to be honest. It turned out to be a skill, like any other skill, something you got better at through practice, through the willingness to be uncomfortable, through the daily choice to say the true thing, rather than the easier thing. Some days they were better at it than others. Most days they were better at it than they had been. 5 years later, 11-year-old Mina stands at the front of her classroom. She carries herself with the particular confidence of someone who has watched her parents survive something and paid close attention to the watching. She holds her essay with both hands. She is her mother's daughter in many ways, but in this, she is entirely herself, comfortable at the front of a room, composed under attention, not performing confidence, but simply having it. The essay is titled, "The Bravest People I Know." She reads, "My mother once told me that brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means being afraid and going forward anyway." She said she learned that from her work. But I've watched my parents for 11 years, and I think they learned it from each other, and from the year when everything broke open and they had to decide what to keep. My parents had a very bad year when I was 6. I understood some of it at the time, and more of it later, as they explained things to me in pieces, at the right ages, in the way that I've decided I will also explain difficult things to my own children, if I have them, honestly, and in installments, and without pretending it wasn't hard. What I understood at 6 was that my father had kept secrets, very big ones, for a very long time, and that the secrets had almost ended our family. What I understand now is why he did it. I don't think the why makes it right, but understanding the why makes it human. My father was afraid. He was afraid in ways he had been carrying since he was 14 years old, and he never put them down, and the weight of them bent him in ways he couldn't always see from the inside. My mother was also afraid. She was afraid that everything she believed was real had turned out to be constructed. She was afraid that her judgment, the judgment she trusted in courtrooms, in negotiations, in everything, had failed her at home. She was afraid that love was not enough reason to stay. They were both afraid. They both went forward anyway. My parents taught me that the truth can hurt more than almost anything, that it can break things that looked solid, unmake things that seemed permanent, leave people standing in rooms they thought they knew, with no clear idea of the floor plan anymore. But they also taught me that the hiding hurts more. Not immediately, not always in ways you can see, but the hiding builds into the structure of things, and eventually, the structure shows it, and by then, the hiding has done its own damage, on top of whatever it was hiding from. I want to be a lawyer, like my mother, or an architect, like my father is studying to be. I haven't decided yet. I change my mind about it approximately every 3 weeks. But I know what I want to build, whichever one I choose. I want to build things that don't need secrets to hold them together. My parents are the bravest people I know, not because they never broke, but because when they broke, they chose to be honest about it. They chose to repair it honestly, in front of each other, even when that was harder than anything else. That's what brave is. That's what I want to be. She looks up. At the back of the classroom, Min-seok and Zuri sit close enough that their shoulders are touching. Min-sok is looking at his daughter with an expression that he makes no attempt to manage or contain. It is the open, uncomplicated expression of a man who has spent 5 years learning to stop managing his expressions, and is now fluent in the practice of simply feeling things in front of people he trusts. Zuri is not crying. She is doing something more precise than crying. She is receiving the words one at a time, fully, letting each one land, because her daughter worked hard on each one, and they deserve to be heard completely. Min-sok finds her hand. He doesn't reach for it tentatively. Not anymore. He finds it the way you find something that belongs to you. Naturally. Without performance. Without drama. She lets him hold it. Mina looks up from her final page, scans the room with the practiced ease of someone comfortable with an audience, finds her parents in the back row, and gives them the look. The specifically 11-year-old look. That means, I can see you being emotional back there, and I would like you to understand that this is mildly embarrassing, and I am choosing to allow it. Then she grins. The whole room. The whole 11-year-old full-face grin that is entirely her own, not her father's, not her mother's, not borrowed from anyone, just Mina, unguarded and present, and completely herself. And Min-sok squeezes Zuri's hand. And Zuri squeezes back. And it is not the end of everything they went through. It is just the moment where what they are building now, honestly, imperfectly, one true thing at a time, becomes visible. Fade out. If this story moved you the way we hoped it would, then you know exactly what to do. Subscribe to Afro-K Storyverse right now, because this is what we do here. We tell the stories that matter, the ones about real love, which is not the love that never breaks. It is the love that breaks and chooses, in the breaking, to be honest. Like this video if it stayed with you. Leave a comment and tell us, what was the moment that hit hardest for you? Was it the champagne bottle? Was it Mina's midnight diplomacy? Was it Min-sok at the podium? Was it the essay? Tell us. We read everything. And share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. You probably already know who that person is. Afro-K Storyverse. We'll see you in the next one.